Hey, we're live. Hey, John Puffer says hello. Sasspress Red saying good evening. How's the weather? It was snowing and sleeting all morning, and it's quit snowing and sleeting a little while ago. So we're actually in the clear at the moment. Yeah, we got quite a bit of ice on us. Roads are all white out there. So the people that are driving across country tonight, if they're going across country and they're passing the Great Plains area, Manitoba sent us a little gift, a little parting gift for winter, and they need to be careful on the road. So, how's everybody doing tonight? Then I'll speak up at once. Let me see here. Let me bring up a little thingamajig here. All right. I got my notes over here to the side, so I can always go back and see what I wrote. Well, that's interesting. I'm looking over here at the screen, and it's showing me a count for a number of people in the audience. I guess we've got commercials going on or something, right? Yeah, no hat. I left it off. Decided to go hatless for a change. Woohoo! No hat. I'm a man without a hat. Let me get Nightbot started up real quick, so he can spam the channel because we all love Nightbot spamming the channel, right? Oh, you want me to go back and put a hat on? I can go back and put. I've got one over here to the side here. Well, it's on the microphone boom, which doesn't have a microphone on it because the microphone quit working. How about this one? You like this one? Is this good? Little ball cap here from Come On Homesteading. David's doing a live stream right now, so figure I may as well wear his hat, right? Hello, Vicky. Let me see. What's this? How'd you fare today? What happened? Now I'm curious. Not a whole lot. It's just a little bit covering the ground at the moment. Presumably we're going to get a little bit more. So I don't really know how it's going to turn out. Anybody's guess. We didn't lose our power, so that's good. Especially considering that I don't have an alternative power supply set up just yet. Okay, you're saying bad ice in central Arkansas? Okay. Carl's off the grid. Good evening, everyone. Hi, Carl. John's saying apartment dwellers should start a hydro or planter garden at least. Yeah, something. Absolutely something. Okay, Vicky says currently hold up while we have the freezing rain and the pantry runneth over. That's good. Good. Oh yeah, you're out there where they're having some pretty bad ice and can't move around, huh? All right. My counter is going up and down and up and down and up and down. I don't know what's going on with that thing. So tonight's program: empty shelves at the grocery store, blackouts, supply chain shortages that result in routine medications becoming temporarily unavailable, dictators freezing assets. Well, as the modern era unfolds, these are the sort of events that we are coming to expect. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to step away from the 21st century horror show and live a life of peace and abundance? Well, it is possible, and tonight, weather permitting, looks like we're going to have some good weather for it. We'll talk about how gardening can bring about true independence. And of course, before we get started talking about true independence, we got to know the difference between independence and freedom. People keep on saying we want freedom. We want freedom. Right now, there's a whole bunch of people traveling across the country in the United States talking about their freedom. Kind of inspired by some events that occurred up in Canada recently. You may have heard about that particular incident. But you got to know the difference between freedom and independence. People want freedom, but before you can have freedom, you have to have something else. And that is independence because, well, let me break down the definitions of these two for you real quick. All right, so freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. So if you've got somebody else that can apply pressure to you to get you to do what they want you to do because they have something that you desperately need, for example, your food, your shelter, your medicine, things of that nature, or they can control the money that you need to purchase these items, then you don't have freedom. In order to get your freedom, you first have to establish your independence. And of course, that's where we're headed tonight. Hey, we got Drew's Food Forest and Edible Landscaping in the house tonight. That's good. Food Forest and Edible Landscaping is an excellent way to gain some independence. All right. Now, you may notice back behind me over here, what's direction? I still haven't gotten used to being backwards here. I've got a picture of an elephant with a chain around his ankle. That's a young elephant. This is the way that they train elephants. In case you've never encountered this concept before, they train an elephant by taking when he was very young, and they put a chain around his ankle, and attach the other end to a tree trunk, a log, a heavy weight, something of that nature that he can't very easily haul, and the chain is too big and too heavy for a young elephant to break. And they keep that chain on him as he grows up. He becomes accustomed to that chain around his ankle, and he knows that with that chain around his ankle, he can't pull free and he can't escape. And eventually the elephant grows up, becomes an adult elephant, and at that time, even though he's got plenty of strength to break the chain, they don't try. They don't even try. They tried whenever they were young. They struggled and they realized they couldn't break the chain. And since they couldn't break that chain, they figured, well, this thing around my ankle, it's unbreakable. And so they don't bother trying. This is, of course, learned helplessness. And of course, you can train humans the same way. You can get them used and accustomed to the idea that it doesn't matter what you do, nothing's going to change. The rich are going to get richer, the poor are going to get poorer, the people in power are always going to be the people in power. And no matter how you try to do anything to change the situations, there's nothing you can do. And so you feel helpless. Eventually, people just give up. They stop trying to break the chains. But we're going to talk about breaking some chains. And yes, yeah, John, right, exactly. It's mental chains. Chains for your mind. The prison for your mind. So yes, you can train people exactly the same way. But remember, this is all learned behavior. It is learned behavior. And since it is not natural behavior, it is learned behavior, it can also be unlearned. All right, so the difference between freedom and independence is freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. Independence, in its very simplest definition, is the absence of dependency. The absence of dependency. Now, what are we all dependent upon? I said this a few years back whenever I got started down the rabbit hole, when I realized I was probably never going to be rich. I said, you know what? That's okay. I don't need to be rich. All I need are the things that money can buy. I don't necessarily need to have the money. And to a certain extent, this is true. There are some things you absolutely have to have money for in the modern era. You have to come up with some cash to pay for your property taxes. Otherwise, the county that you're in is going to come along and confiscate your property that you're actually living on. So you do need some cash for that, at least up until the point where we can get those sorts of practices changed. Knock on wood. Taxes, that sort of thing. Well, if you earn the money to pay your property taxes, you might need to earn some money to pay your income taxes. But other than that, let's see, what do we need? We need food, we need fuel, we need shelter, we need medicine. And of course, if we have children, we need to be able to educate the children. And preferably educate them so they are not learning to be helpless. All of these things can be obtained without money, interestingly enough. I said, no, you can sell out. That's the way to go. Sell out and do as you're told. Just do what you're told. We're on to take $100,000 house over $20. You can say, and unfortunately, all learned behaviors can be unlearned, but only with increasing difficulty. Yeah, you really do have to work at it. I mean, even to this day, I'm trying to avoid saying things like we whenever the government that I don't support decides it's going to do something, against my will and most of other people's will, and go off and go on a tangent and do something like that. So look at what we're doing. I was like, no, it's not we, because we would include me, and I didn't sign up for that particular ride. All right, there's a little principle of action that I want to put out here for you, and grab a kitty real quick because she's wanting some attention apparently. Say hi, kitty. Okay, that sounds like a hi. We have this thing that we like to think of as called, I can't talk today. We have this thing called equality that we like to imagine that we have as human beings, or we would like to achieve the state of equality amongst ourselves. But you cannot have equality amongst people whenever one of them is in a position of authority. If you have a position of authority, equality goes bye-bye. And you'll find that out quickly. Several experiments have been done on this particular concept. The Milgram experiment and the Stanford prison experiment come to mind, where we took people and put them in positions of authority. We had people who were ordinary people listening to the people in positions of authority and see what happens. It's a very, very scary procedure. All right, Cat. Cat wants to be given attention now because I'm busy talking, apparently. She thinks that because I'm talking, I must be talking to her. All right, kitty. Look, if you're going to be over here, then you need to stop just jumping up on me. Yeah. All right. We were talking about breaking chains. The way to do that is forming new habits. Cat, got to quit doing that. No kings. All right. So, person in a position of authority over another person, there can't be equality between the two people. So, if you want equality, you have to get rid of positions of authority. You have to despise positions of authority. Whenever you see somebody seeking one, you go, hey, wait a minute. What are you trying to pull here? Because that's a person trying to get rid of equality. So, habits, like saying we whenever the government does something. If we're in America and the American government does something, we say, have you heard what we're doing over there in Afghanistan, or over there in Syria, or over there in wherever the American government has gotten itself involved where it probably shouldn't be? We keep on saying we. We shouldn't be saying we. Very hard habit to break, but it can be broken, and it can be broken by establishing new habits. For example, the habit of going out and acquiring perennial plants, trees, shrubs, bushes, etc., to plant around your landscape. The habit of starting to incorporate the food from those plants into your diet and get yourself more and more off of the need, in any case, to go to the grocery store to get your food. That's one thing. Well, we could talk about teachers and students. The more you can get independent with your food supply, the less you're going to be worried if something happens that prevents you from getting food. For example, some sort of financial crisis, which we can't in the least bit see coming on the horizon. Another thing we want to achieve independence in is fuel. Now, here we have natural gas for a floor furnace. We've got electric light, obviously, at the moment. And that could go out sometime tonight if the ice storm gets bad enough. And if all of that fails, I've got a wood burning stove over there and plenty of wood to burn, in the wood burning stove. I didn't get this wood from trees that we're growing here on the property. The trees I'm growing on the property are currently too young to be harvested for wood, but we have 10, I think, that are still living hazelnut trees, and plans to expand that to about 2 or 3 times that number on this third of an acre. Those will need to be coppiced on a regular basis, and that coppice wood, in combination with a few other pieces of wood that we can pick up as we do routine pruning every year, should be enough to at least provide some of the fuel needs that we have around the house. This particular house is not particularly well insulated, so it's not not great at capturing and holding that heat. Now, if this house were to be built as a geo-sheltered house and designed to be well insulated from the very beginning, that amount of fuel would be more than enough to supply our needs. Let's see what else we have. We have shelter. We have the need for shelter. And of course, agroforestry can provide us with the raw materials that we need for providing shelter as well. Let me back up and see what people are saying. Mary's in. She's late. John's saying the leverage of resources is used for position of power to push people. Well, yeah, that's it. Whenever somebody has got a hold over what you need to survive, then you don't have independence. And when you don't have independence, you can't have freedom. Okay. So Vicky was saying there are necessary circumstances for authorities, such as teachers and students. That doesn't mean the position of authority is permanent. And that's a very good point. And incidentally, when we start talking about education, the educational system that we have, if I was in an auditorium, I'd say, how many people out there, raise your hand if you spent some time in the public education system? And then we can go on from there. But I think a lot of people have spent at least some time in the public education system or have been exposed to it. And this is really where our learned helplessness starts. You see, whenever children are playing in the sandbox and one of them does something that we all know he shouldn't be doing, he pushes another kid down, he steals their toy away from him, starts harassing him, calling him names, punches him, kicks him, bites him, pulls his hair, any number of things, horrible things that kids can do to other kids. Everybody else in the sandbox and around the playground absolutely 100% knows that is incorrect behavior. They know he's the guilty party. And whenever the person who is being assaulted defends themselves against that, the fight breaks out. Now, everybody who's watching goes, yeah, Timmy started it. Everybody knows Timmy started it. Johnny was defending himself and Timmy started it. This is what all the kids around the sandbox know. But the teacher comes in and the teacher breaks up the fight, pulls them apart. And Timmy and Johnny are both going to the principal's office, and Timmy and Johnny are both going to be punished because it's the teacher's authority that matters, and the agency of the children involved in the sandbox altercation is not a consideration. They don't have authority. So we get accustomed to seeing this person in a position of authority, this teacher, who is the stand-in or representative of the state in the case of public education. The teacher and the principal are the stand-in for the state. The children are taught from a very early age not to defy the authority of the state. The state is in charge, and the state will decide what is right and what is wrong. And you are not allowed to make these decisions for yourself. Unfortunately, by the time you reach adulthood, they never come along and say, okay, now you have been properly trained to critically think, and you are capable of making these decisions about what's right and wrong for yourself. We now grant you the authority to make these decisions for yourself. They never do this. So even though theoretically we have a servant government, when people leave the indoctrination center that we call the public school system, they go out into the world and they don't know how to think critically for themselves. They don't know how to take control of their own lives. They don't know how to exercise authority over their own affairs, and they sort of flounder around a little bit. And it's getting worse and worse and worse as time goes on. It was bad enough when I was going through school. But now, I don't know. Cat, why is it? For the last few hours, you have not cared that I've been over here. But now you want the attention. Kitty wants attention. What financial crisis? John says. Ha! Deep question there, Sasspress Red, saying we are all teachers and students as I teach my children, yet my children teach me. So who is above the other? It's very true that whenever one sets out to teach a subject, any subject it is, you wind up learning a lot more than you thought you might. If you want to really master a topic, teach it. Right? So now we're going to master the petting of kitties. No. Look at this attention hog here. Look at this attention hog. What? What? All right, Kitty, run along. I know you don't want to be in my lap. Go, shoot. Psst, psst. All right. John wants to grow some apple trees. Water? Oh, yes, I forgot. Water independence. Definitely. You've got to have a way to get your water. So Carl's doing a lot of off-grid projects involving, power, shelter, food, water. He's doing all of these things. So a very good example of some of those acquiring some of those things can be seen on Carl's channel. Sarah did 13 years of hard time in the federal diseducation system. Or miseducation. I guess I'd say criminally miseducation or criminally miseducated. I've discovered from talking to people that have just recently been involved as teachers in the current educational system about the grotesque lack of education in certain vital areas that just they're not teaching the kids things that we knew whenever I was going through school. John's saying self-autonomy is a powerful thing. It is. And I would think that autonomy, bodily autonomy, the ability to have a say as to what happens with your physical person is an essential human right. And of course, that's mainly what the trucker convoy up there in Canada recently was about. The person that was in the public servant role had suddenly decided that he was going to issue a mandate stating that certain work could not be performed without verifiable vaccinations. So denying people their bodily autonomy, which is kind of funny because I believe he's on the political left side of the spectrum, and the political left has been very adamant about bodily autonomy for several decades now. But apparently it doesn't apply in this case. Consistency is somewhat lacking there. All right. Now, Vicky is saying when she was 8 years old, a bully stole her purse and sauntered down the hall, flaunting what he had taken. He was a head taller than her, and she tore after him, leapt up. Hang on. She's going to type the rest of it. I have a feeling I know where this is going. John's saying history is not being taught. Real history, yes, this is true. Real history is not being taught. Actually, whenever I was going through school, they didn't really mention the Whiskey Rebellion at all. And the Second Constitutional Convention, the only thing they really mentioned was there were some things with the original Articles of Confederation that didn't work out too well. They couldn't consolidate and pay off the debts that they wanted to, so they wrote a new constitution and turned the country into a republic. See, the United States of America wasn't always a republic. It used to be a confederacy of sovereign states. All right, Vicky says, finishing off the story, took a chunk out of his shoulder with her teeth, got the purse back, and was summoned to the principal's office. And well, yeah, that's it, because you're not allowed to handle these matters yourself. You have to rely upon the authority of the state. And the stand-in for the state in the school system is, of course, the teachers and the principal. All right. So we're working on trying to not be an elephant. I was on an itemized list of things that we need to work towards gaining at least some sense of independence on. Now, keep in mind, you're not going to necessarily be able to do everything. That would be unreasonable. Even if you have sufficient property, you don't necessarily have sufficient time or sufficient skills or sufficient tools to accomplish all of these goals for independence: food, fuel, shelter, medicine, and education. In the case of having children, of course, educating yourself is important. Cat, would you stop that? Just go on. I have a little terror in the house with me. She's coming over here and is chewing on the desk. Let's talk about medicine for a minute. Well, okay. Before I talk about medicine for a minute, if you can produce something, and you can produce something in excess and a surplus with what you have for your particular skill set, then you can take that and barter or trade with other people for the things that you also need. He said, it was inappropriate behavior. He stole my purse. I got it back. Where were you? Well, yeah. Whenever you're in trouble and somebody's busting down your door at 2:00 in the morning, the police are just a phone call and half an hour away. So when it comes to matters of self-defense, if you are not, I didn't even put that on the itemized list on my show notes, did I? If you're not prepared to defend yourself, then you're just kind of up the creek. I was going to go talk about medicine for a moment because I wound up writing a pretty lengthy comment on one of Russell Brand's videos sometime, I think it was last week. It was with regards to the problems with drugs, with medicine in the United States of America. The way things are done is just ludicrous. And I came across this, when was that? Maybe 2006, 2007, somewhere around there. I started getting interested in herbal medicine. That was about the time I got interested in prepping, because I came to the realization that eventually we were going to wind up having a coronal mass ejection hit the earth at some point, and at that point the power grid infrastructure that we have is not going to make it, and we're going to be sort of plunged back into the 17 to 1800s, technologically speaking. The amount of time that it takes to replace even one of those major transformers is several months, and they are not even produced here. They're produced overseas. So we'd have to get word to people overseas that have the factories to make the transformers, providing that they even can without power themselves, that we need transformers, and we need several hundred of them that are going to take a few months each to build and then ship and then bring over here, if we can even maintain that sort of supply chain after a major event like that. And this is not one of those things like it might happen. It's one of those, it will happen. It's just a question of when. But even without all the other horrible things that could happen, we're not going to worry about those. The one definite thing is the sun's going to act up, and eventually the lights are going to go out. So to keep us from being plunged entirely into the dark ages, it's a good idea to have backups for educational materials, hard copies, books that are useful, books on science, books on medicine, books on engineering, books on mathematics. Mathematics is not one of my greatest subjects, but I do have books on it, because even though I may not be the next greatest mathematician, maybe one day I can hand the book to somebody who will be. And that's a kind of a comforting thought for me. Cat, why are you grabbing my hand? Okay, she's now trying to claw at me to get my attention. Jeez, kitty. All right. But I got sidetracked. I started getting really into herbal medicine and finding out more and more about what sort of herbs could be used to treat different illnesses, how to diagnose illness, how to use the herbs to treat illness, what herbs were effective, what herbs would not mix well together, and also to a certain extent what modern drugs actually came originally from herbs, and a great number of them do. Oddly enough, the herbal remedies still work. The only problem with the herbal remedies, well, there's two problems with herbal remedies. One is titration, controlling your dosage amounts to get the right amount of the active ingredient that you actually need to treat the condition that you're attempting to treat. And of course, the other one is you can't patent an herbal remedy for something. All right, let me see here. So I started writing about what is wrong with medicine today, and I wrote this part one, the drugs, and I broke it down into several segments. First off, we have the law. The patented period for a new pharmaceutical product is 2 years. At least it was whenever I was doing the research a few years back. After 2 years, anyone can take a formerly patented medicine, reverse engineer it for pennies on the dollar and research and development costs, and put out a lower cost version of the same medication. The law, furthermore, does little to protect practitioners of medicine from spurious lawsuits when they're acting in good faith, attempting to aid their patients. Finally, despite evidence revealing that a great number of illnesses are trophic in nature, that means they have their root causes in nutrient deficiencies, it's somehow unlawful to suggest that unpatented things like overall diet, vitamins, and minerals should be prescribed to treat illnesses. Notice, I am not saying that I recommend these things, because obviously I'm not a medical practitioner and I don't have a license to be able to give you medical information. If you want medical information, seek a qualified professional. There we go. Now that's the disclaimer. The legally accepted treatments for disease must undergo an expensive vetting process to be supervised by the FDA. That's one of the first problems. Second problem is, of course, the patients. Well, you know what the average patient is like. The average patient knows next to nothing about internal medicine. They certainly don't know that fewer than 48 medications can be used to treat most illnesses, and that those 48 are, for the most part, derivatives of herbal remedies. The main advantage to isolating an active compound being better titration, as I mentioned before. They know that science good, and they ask for the latest of medications and occasionally the best, as if their doctor is supposed to be able to make that sort of judgment. Number 3, the FDA. Food and Drug Administration, supposedly installed for for consumer protection. The FDA places a financial barrier to new drugs entering the marketplace. Hello, kitty. Are you? New drugs entering the marketplace through regulations that prevent new, low-cost medications from entering the marketplace. It is well over $1 billion per product, with a 12% rate of approval, which means you spend the money to get the new product to market, and you have a 12% chance that it actually gets through. You're still out the money. A pharmaceutical company will need to have several products making their way through the process, or the pipeline, as they might say, in order to have a shot at one new one coming out every 2 years. Remember, that's the patent period. They also prevent the mainstream adoption of natural medicines that cannot be patented. No patent process, no FDA approval. So even though you may be able to go and look at peer-reviewed research that states absolutely vitamin C is effective at reducing the amount of time that it takes to recover from severe infections like insert name of virus here. Since you cannot patent vitamin C, the FDA will not approve it for treatment. And I cannot tell you that you can take vitamin C to more quickly recover from illness. Isn't that crazy? I can't tell you as medical information. I can say anecdotally, hey, I've read this paper that says this thing, and then I'm just reporting upon what I've read in the paper, right? I'm not giving you medical advice. I can't give you medical advice. That would be wrong. All right, number 4. This one's 4. Pharmaceutical companies. These are multi-million-dollar companies, and they have to be. They have to be. With the cost of bringing a new or even a slightly modified old medication to market, a pharma company needs to have about $6 billion per year invested in every type of medication that they produce. So if they make a blood thinner, $6 billion a year for the blood thinner, and they have to keep on refreshing it and renewing it. In order to bring the patient, I can't talk. In order to bring the patient the latest, a company may have multiple variations of essentially the same medication working through the process at one time, each with just a little minor tweak to the molecule, still effective, hopefully, with different and usually more side effects, hopefully not more dangerous side effects, but we're moving further and further away from nature with our medications because they have to be patented. So we start with the original molecule, and then we change it just a little bit. We add something, we take something away. It's chemically similar enough that it'll still work, but we have different side effects. We could have stuck with the original molecule, but hey, guess what? Anybody can sell that now. All right. So now the original treatment's been long forgotten. It still works perfectly well, but the extra side effects aren't necessarily a bad thing for the pharmacoms, though. They just provide more symptoms to make more medications to treat. It's a new opportunity. Lobbying to shut down competitors and giving former FDA officials paid seats on their boards are another expense that pharmaceutical companies just have to shoulder. So to make sure that those shiny new meds get out there and sell, the pharmacy reps make the rounds, passing out samples and data sheets to the doctors, assuring them that the newest, latest, and greatest medication is everything that their patients could possibly ask for. And they will ask for it because the pharma companies are even running advertisements on television so the patients can ask their doctors for the new medications by name. Which brings us around to number 5, which is the doctors themselves. 4 years of undergraduate school, 4 years of medical school, and at least 3, but usually 4 or more years of residency. Student loans, malpractice insurance. Remember, the law doesn't really provide a whole lot of protection for the doctors who are acting in good faith, so they have to have malpractice insurance. That's expensive. Becoming a doctor is expensive. It's time-consuming. It's stressful. And most MDs are not really trained as engineers. They're not able to view the human body as a series of interconnected systems with detailed understandings of the workings of each in the way that say, a permaculturist has to train themselves. Instead, they're more like a technician with a limited ability to diagnose and treat symptoms, not the overall patient. There are certain classifications of doctors. We'll just go out here and say this. There are doctors that actually will treat the whole patient, and you have to look for them, but you'll be able to find them. Let me skip down to another line here. Okay, here's some quotations. Why did you choose to prescribe a generic medication that is 40 years old? Could be a damning question during a malpractice lawsuit, but it's not likely to come up unless the doctor in question is referring their patients to a compounding pharmacy. The reason is if medication is no longer being manufactured by the pharmacy companies, then it's not going to get prescribed. And the doctor is much more likely to prescribe whatever it was for that illness that the pharmacy rep just handed him a data sheet on, because he's already busy trying to keep up with what he knows about medicine, and having to learn all new medications on a regular basis is just too much. Let's see. First, do no harm and let my food be my medicine and my medicine be my food. Food should be the first thing that an MD thinks when seeing a patient. Should be. But ultimately, between the patients insisting on the new meds and the pharmacy rep's sales pitch, the doctor will half-heartedly suggest that the patient cut back on the nicotine products and maybe lose some weight, and then he's going to reach for the prescription pad, because that's what you're here for, is the new drugs. Here you go. That was number 5. Number 6 is the government and the insurance companies. Now, I list those two together because they have a similar effect. Despite having two separate paths to monetization, both entities are in the business of being the third party that pays for medications. By standing in between the consumer and the previously mentioned factors, governments and insurance companies remove the burden from the patient when it comes to medication costs. But seriously, has anyone ever known of a situation where the cost of anything goes down when someone else is footing the bill? If the end customer were to be exposed to the sticker shock of the latest and the best, they might well start clamoring for the 40-year-old cure that still works and has fewer and less harmful side effects. Or they'll pay a closer attention when the tired-out MD suggests diet and healthy lifestyle choices. So there we go. That's my rant on medication. And yet another area where we desperately need to start working on gaining some independence in our bodily autonomy. Of course, gaining some independence in our knowledge of what kind of medicine we're taking, knowledge about medicines in general, knowledge about virology. There's some basic things that we used to know, and certainly I did, because I grew up on a farm and we had to do our own veterinary work, a large amount of it. We would go to the vet and he'd show us how to do the procedures that we needed to understand how to do, the things that we were going to do on a regular basis. And then from there out, we did it. So I learned how to do some minor surgery. Yay! And of course, I can't practice on humans. Boo! Yeah, Joe, that's the Hippocrates. That's learning directly from Hippocrates. Learning directly from Hippocrates. Let me back up and see what people have been saying while I've been ranting about the drugs, because that was a bit long. Sorry about that. Kitty, I'm going to bring you up here and I'm going to make you a lap cat, because I'm sick and tired of you running around biting at my ankles. All right. Anyway, yeah, wrestle! Up to 5 million subscribers the man has now. He's doing good. And I think he was looking for somebody to help him out with research, but they have to be in England. And I don't want to go to England. All right, Vicky's saying, I was taught that I have no right to cause problems and every right to defend myself. To cost somebody anything to leave me be. Yeah, really. It's the person who initiates the violence that is the guilty party. That's what we all know from the sandbox. The person who initiates the violence is the guilty party. We've all known this. It's basic and fundamental. It's written right here in our hearts, so we don't need a piece of paper to tell that to us. John's saying, if the EMP were to hit, there are redundancies being built into the grid in some places, but probably not enough. Jasper Fred says, "Amen, Vicky. Both my boys are tall and broad. I always taught them not to be the bullies or to start fights, but by God, you can finish it." Really? Is there somebody out there? What is it, kitty? I hear you. She's growling. She only growls if there's somebody around. She's weird like that. She thinks she's a dog. Well, that's the sound of the heater cracking there. I don't know what you're going on about. I'll tell you what. If somebody comes in, they're going to get more than they bargained for. All right. Let me see here. Oh yeah, if you want to know about what's going on with the power grid, Green Greg's has got a lot of information on power grid defense. He shared the I think the Georgia conference for power grid defense, trying to draw attention to exactly how vulnerable it is. All right, let me see here. Joe says, hello, 20 minutes late or 28 minutes late. Well, just got back from running some errands downtown. For shame. All right. Transformers on the pole and not grounded as they go out. Especially with lightning. Yeah, it's a bit more than lightning. All right, where are we at? Big Pharma Fooey. All right. Vicky says, went through medical school. There is no certified medical school that's not dependent upon Big Pharma. I mean, yeah, pretty much. And it's that revolving door. They make the drugs. They send the pharmacy reps out, talk to the doctors, tell the doctors what to prescribe. Doctors go, well, I don't know what to prescribe, except I got the sheet here, besides which you've got to prescribe what's being sold. You can't prescribe a medication that your patient can't get. So if the pharmacy company is not manufacturing that medication anymore, it wouldn't matter if you prescribed it anyway. They can't get it. Mary says, what do you call a vet that only treats one kind of animal? An MD. That's it. Let's see. John says, but some people like drugs. Wasn't really referring to the kind of drugs that make you feel good. We're talking about the kind of drugs that are used to treat illnesses, or at least to treat symptoms, not necessarily illnesses. That's a different matter entirely. It's treating the actual patient, figuring out what is really the problem, and getting to the root causes of a problem. Like I said, most of our major illnesses are trophic in nature. In other words, they all link back to a dietary deficiency. Too much of the wrong thing, not enough of the right thing, that sort of thing. Oh yeah, don't be ignorant. Well, we can't help but be ignorant, because there's so much out there that we simply do not know, and there are things that we don't even know that we don't know yet. So ignorance is endemic, but there's no point to remaining ignorant once we are aware that we have a deficiency in knowledge. That can be remedied. All right. And Vicky is saying here, most nurses know far more about nutrition than most doctors. I would also add that most nurses know far more about drug interactions than most doctors. If it was not for nurses, there would be a lot more people killed by doctors who meant to do well but didn't know any better, because the only thing they knew about the drugs was what was on that fact sheet that the pharmacy rep handed them. Scary but true. Let's see. Vicky says, I'm not a doctor, but I am a medical reference librarian. Hey, there you go. That's a challenging career right there. Keeping track with all the new drugs coming down the pipeline and go, okay, so how's this one different from the last one? Oh, okay. So it's instead of, okay, all right, well, that's not that much, but it's enough for a new patent. Go. Let's see. Read the medical journals about what knots are coming out about the Wu flu. Oh yeah, oh, the Wu flu, the fun thing. I don't know. Can I say it? I may as well say it. Yeah, at this point, there's nobody who is catching COVID-19. People haven't been catching COVID-19 for well over a year now. But the fact of the matter is, there is coronavirus, and we've been fighting it for thousands of years now. They only really identified it back in the 1950s, but they were like, oh, so this is the virus that causes the common cold. It's this funny little round thing, little spiky things all over it. We call it coronavirus. There we go. So two to four times a year, you get this little illness. You get a sniffle, you get a sneeze. Sometimes you get a cough, occasionally a tummy ache, but that's the rotavirus, which is related, not the same. And you refresh your acquaintance with this particular family of diseases, which is called developing a natural immunity. We all have it. Or you could do what's being suggested by some people, which is take 2 or 3 months to identify and map a new strain of a virus. Okay, we do that. 6 months overall to develop a new vaccine for it. Okay, we do that. And in the meantime, this new thing that you just identified, which is another variation of the same old thing, has mutated. Let's see, twice a month, so 12 times. And they produce this new vaccine. Here you go, 20 pounds a shot. And it gives you the opportunity to develop antibodies for a strain of virus that is no longer in circulation. But you've probably, in all likelihood, been exposed to a more recent copy of it, just walking around and encountering other people. So the naturally acquired immunity that you picked up in between the time that they were able to identify a new strain and produce a vaccine for it is more up to date and better than what you would get from the shot. So why are they making people take shots? Makes no sense, right? Anyway, okay, I'll get off that soapbox. Don't forget to take your vitamins. That's right. Remember what Hulk says. Little Hulksters, don't forget to take your vitamins. All right. He says, don't claim to know much, but I am a master at finding out. Yeah. Research monkeys. I'll let the doctors keep practicing. Someday they may get it right. I wouldn't hold my breath. All right. Create synergistic transformation says DOs tend to be better pharma or less pharma oriented than MDs. Yeah. If you were looking for a doctor that was going to be able to treat you as a whole patient and get at the root cause of whatever your illness is instead of just prescribing medication to treat your symptoms, a DO is where to go. It's a doctor of osteopathy. They are not anywhere near as common as MDs, but they are better doctors. All right. COVID 5,000. Oh, it's a good question. How many variations of the coronavirus are there out there at the current moment? If we were to take a snapshot of all of the variations of coronavirus out there right now, how many do you suppose there are? Thousands, probably, in all actuality. But they're still cranking out a vaccination for one that is no longer in circulation and forcing people to take shots, which is kind of disturbing. Create synergistic transformation is asking us, what's your take on terrain theory? I don't have one, at least not under that name. Maybe if you talk briefly about it and put a handle on it, I might know what you're talking about. Might be that I know what you're talking about, just not under that name. Mary says I get humanized about twice a year. Sorry, immunized. Oh yeah, I was talking with the next door neighbor across the way not too long ago, and he was saying he needed to go in and get his tetanus booster. I said, oh, okay. He says, when was the last time you had your tetanus booster? And I said, I don't think I've had a tetanus booster since I got the shot way back when. So I got it when I was a kid, but every year I wind up outside working in the dirt and getting cut up, and I'm exposed to it annually. So I'm not worried. My immunity is up to date. Where are we at? Oh, here we go. We're at the very end of comments. All right. So, rusty trailers. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember what I was going to say. I'm not anti-vax at all. Vaccines are a wonderful thing. They save lots of lives. As a matter of fact, when it comes to certain illnesses like, let's say, smallpox, rubella, measles, mumps, scarlet fever, perhaps, polio, there are a lot of illnesses out there that getting a vaccine for whenever you're not too incredibly old, probably not as young as they're handing them out. I think the age that they're vaccinating kids is a bad idea. They might want to slow those out and give those vaccinations out over an extended period of time so that their immune systems can properly recover from having been shocked by the adjuvants that are in vaccines, simply because of the way they work. But those illnesses where your first exposure might be lethal, having a vaccine is absolutely life saving. And I highly recommend that if you've got young ones, some of those basic things, you find some way to get them an immunity to, hopefully without them having to catch it and then recover. Although that's a way of getting it done too. It's just more risky. But when it comes to pathogens that we already have general antibodies for, giving us a vaccination that's going to give us more general antibodies for a version of it that's no longer in circulation is no help at all. As a matter of fact, it's harmful to do that. So there we go. Of course, there are some people out there that are confused about their roles. They think that they are the masters and we are the servants. That's a problem. Of course, that's what the recent to-do in Canada was about. And of course, there's more of that going on. I need a wide-angle lens on my computer or something. There's more of that going on in the United States. Right now, there are a bunch of trucks heading across the country towards D.C. Some of them are in D.C. already to, of course, protest heavy-handed restrictions. Whether you believe in the efficacy of the vax or not, or you believe that wearing masks is helpful or not, one thing that at one time the left would agree on is that people should have bodily autonomy and get to actually make those decisions for themselves where their own bodies and their health is concerned. For some reason, bodily autonomy is no longer important to some on the left. To some on the left, it is very important, and they also agree that, hey, you know what? If you don't want to get the shot, you shouldn't have to get the shot because it's your body, your choice. All right. So I wrote one song last week. I figured I'd write another one. Now, this is the first time attempting to perform this. So actually, let me do this. There's a line here in the lyrics that I get to. I said, "Raise your hand and honk for freedom." So if I was singing this without a guitar in my hand, I'd be doing this whenever that happens. This is what you do. If you've got a rig, you reach up and you grab that little rope that's right here and you pull on that blows your air horn. Now, whenever kids see the big rig going by, I mean, they used to whenever I was a kid, and apparently they still do, they look up there at the trucker and they go, and if the trucker sees them doing it, chances are the trucker's going to reach up there and honk his horn for him, and everybody loves that except for mom and dad, who get annoyed because the horn is blowing right there next to them, and they were trying to have a serious conversation about where they're going to come up with the milk money this week. And I'm looking at my screen here. Let me see here. Look at my screen. I got my lyrics written down here. Hopefully, I can read them off and play this thing and not choke. Hey. Well, I've heard the public servants have gotten out of hand. They've been spreading tyranny all across our land. God. So if you're wondering what to do to take back your control, just raise your hand and honk for freedom, and baby, slow your roll. Raise your hand in North America, the home of the brave and free, because we aren't asking very much, except you let us be. This was the land of liberty, oh, not that long ago. So raise your hand and honk for freedom, and baby, slow your roll. Something like that, yeah. Still working on the music portion of it, but I got the lyrics down. I know what the lyrics are supposed to be so far. Of course, slow your roll also can be a caution to people in positions of power whenever they get a little bit overzealous and forget that they're supposed to be servants and not masters. Perry says, "Explain the music video you envisions in my head." Yeah. I'm thinking about what the Hong Kong. I'm thinking about what the music video is going to be like. I'm thinking about the instruments that are going to be in it. Unfortunately, it's just me, and I can only halfway play a guitar. All right. So, gardening, folks, it's the way to go. Right now, outside, we've got. I'm not in the key of Johnny Cash. All right. So right now outside we've got 2 pecan trees. This is a 30-acre lot. We got two pecan trees that are growing. We could have 2 more. We're up to 2 more. If those were planted whenever the house was first bought, by the time it gets done with the note, 20 years, they're going to be producing 60 pounds of nuts each for a total of 120 pounds. We've got room here for about 30, maybe 45, possibly hazelnut trees worked into to the rest of the scenery. Those at about 15 pounds each whenever they hit maturity at 9 years of age, and then we just coppice to keep them current. That's 15 pounds each. We'll do, say 30. We'll have 30 times 15. That's 145 plus another 160. That's about 300 pounds worth of just nuts. And 1 pound of nuts is about 2,000 calories, incidentally, in the shell. 2,000 calories, high in protein. Mary's saying 1 notch higher. Okay. All right. Well, you mean like a half step? Go up, put the capo on, like I did for Strong and Free. Put it up here. Well, I've heard the public servants have gotten out of hand. They've been spreading tyranny all across the land. So if you're wondering what to do to take back your control, raise your hand and honk for freedom, and baby, slow your roll. Something like that. All right, we'll keep on working on it. All right, where was? Oh yeah, got distracted. A little over 300 pounds of just nuts. You pick up a few more other items to fill out the rest of your diet, because you can't live on nuts alone. Sometimes you got to eat a squirrel or some fish or what have you. In any case, easy enough to grow around your property. And if you're not starving because somebody said, "I don't like your political position, I'm going to cut off your money supply," then you've got the ability to fight back in that respect. You can maintain your independence. If you can maintain your independence, then you can achieve your freedom. I think people don't really realize what the point of a protest is. The point of a protest is not to change the mind of the people in power. That's not what it's for. It's not to force the people in power to do what you want them to do. They aren't going to listen to you. They're already in power. They don't need to listen to you. The point of the protest is to convince everyone else that something needs to be done about the situation. So the force of the people can be brought to bear on the problem, instead of trying to persuade that one politician that was doing things maybe not the right way. That's what the point of the protest is. So whenever you're out there and you're attempting to protest and make your case, it's very important that you set a good example. Don't be the person who initiates violence. If there is going to be violence, make sure that you're not the one who starts it. Even to a certain extent, you might, if you're out there in the very initial phases of a protest, you might consider not even fighting back, which doesn't sound productive, because if you don't fight back, you're just going to get beaten up, perhaps killed. Your assets can be taken away from you. You can be thrown in prison. All sorts of horrible things can happen to you. But the people who are watching, provided, of course, the people can watch and see what's going on, will be able to see. And because we all grew up with that perfect vision that we had in the sandbox, Timmy started it and Johnny was defending himself. That's what we know. Eventually, the arc of history comes around to justice. And of course, that's the show, guys. Independence. It starts at home. It starts with those of us that have the vision to realize that things are not going in the right direction. We can start right now, or already have. Quite a few of us already have, taking control of our food supply, taking control of our fuel, our energy needs, taking control of our medicine, taking control of our education, educating ourselves, educating each other. And that's how we gain independence. Once we've gotten independence, then we can get freedom. Vicky's saying that old Trudy obviously hasn't seen the results yet of the cessation of transportation. Guys, yeah. If you can get it, a truck brought it. You don't want to upset the truckers. You really don't. Alrighty. So anyway, yeah, that's the show tonight. Hey, there's Joshua Milson. Hey, bud, thanks for saying that. Hey, hi. I've got a lot of people that I follow up in Canada on a regular basis. Stefan Sokoviak up in Quebec, of course, Quebec Homestead, Mallory up there. She was actually one of my very first subscribers way back when I was first getting started. So, cheers. I have several friends up there. I just can't stand the weather. It gets too cold down here in Oklahoma for me sometimes. I think Lori up there at Lori's World, she's up there on the plains. Always in the cold. Josh is asking what my favorite crops to grow. I like nut trees. I really, really like growing nuts. Pecans mainly, which I know you can't really get much of it in Canada, at least not growing. Mark Shepard up there in Wisconsin is doing some work on burbanking pecans, but it's going to be a while before we've got various strains of the pecan tree developed to the point where you can actually grow them well in Canada. Zones, 4, 3, up there. Hazelnuts are great. Chestnuts, I suppose. I'm not a big fan of chestnuts, but I am a big fan of bacon. And pork finished on chestnuts. This is pretty tasty. Let's see. Joe's saying lights went out for a mere 15 seconds. Yay! The lights are back on. Waiting to re-enter. Saw a video clip of a Mexican rock group called Moderato. I haven't heard of them. No. I'll go look them up. The pecan trees are doing good. I shot a video earlier this week because I don't think we're going to get much more cold weather for this year. So I went out and I did some pruning on it. I always want to do the pruning, cutting it back, letting it bush out, clearing out chimneys and stuff like that during the cold months. So I did the pecan tree and I did one of the pear trees this past week, and they're doing okay. Pork on chestnuts. Yeah, it's the company is called the co-op is called Organic Valley that Mark goes through. So the pork, it's somebody else that's running the hogs, as I understand it. He grows on New Forest Farm. He grows the chestnuts, and then the hogs are brought through on a grazing rotation. And then whenever the chestnuts go to mass, there'll be some people that go out and he does a U-pick, so that people will go out and collect the chestnuts themselves, and then he'll bring the hogs through or let the hogs come through, and those will wind up going to market. So Organic Valley out of Wisconsin should have some really, really good pork to try out. But I imagine, as anything else that's meat these days, it's going to be expensive. All right. Now, Mary's saying the more the truckers get in the news, the more paranoid she gets. Why is that? Well, Mary is a truck driver. My wife, Mary, is Tulsa Fox. She is a truck driver. She's not heading to DC right now. She's a company driver. I think all the people heading to DC are owner operators. So, well, I don't know. I guess there could be some company folks driving, but well, yeah, she's saying the mainstream media turning truckers from here to zero. I don't know. How many of us are actually trusting the mainstream media these days? And the people who are trusting the mainstream media, you weren't going to be able to persuade them anyway. I don't think. You can try, but I think when people are fed on a diet of lies for long enough, that when you try telling them the truth, they just reject it. Vicky is saying pork fattened on acorns in Spain is world famous. Yeah, well, mass is good for pork. It's good for deer, and it's good for goats too. It's not great for sheep. You can have oak trees growing and let them go to mast and run your goats through where the acorns fell, but not sheep. Sheep will get sick off of eating acorn mast. I don't know why, but they do. Joe is saying, Jason, have you heard of Omnipork? It's like a vegan version of Spam, but made with pea protein and shiitake mushrooms. It looks like Spam. I wasn't doing that. No, I was doing that because I was burping. I had some spicy sausage with mustard just before I sat down to talk, and so now it's just making me a little gassy. Sorry about that. Actually, that might be really good. Shiitake mushrooms are good. Pea protein is good. Put the two of them together, the right kind of seasoning. Who knows? Although, really, I think vegetable sources of protein, just served up as vegetables, are fine the way they are. You don't have to go a whole lot of trouble to make them seem like something that they're not. Chickpeas, for example. I love chickpeas. You boil them, salt them, and I can eat them just a little bit of oil in a pan and then lightly toast them after you've cooked them. And you just eat them like snack food. They're yummy, high in protein, good for you. Oh no, here we go. Spam. Mary likes the Spam. I like the those little tins of corned beef for our prepper pantry. I don't really stock the Spam. There's a company called Keystone that makes canned meat, and they have beef, and they've got pork, and they got chicken. I mean, everybody's got chicken, but Keystone makes a pretty good canned beef that you can get and have up on your shelves for those days whenever you want it. It's not really good for making beef stroganoff with, though. Unfortunately, I tried it with the instant beef stroganoff, and it just didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to. But it's really good. It's really good meat. It's not textured. It's not chopped and pressed and formed or anything like that. It's really chunks of meat. The pork is really chunks of pork. And if you have a little bit of barbecue sauce and a couple of buns and that Keystone pork, oh man, it's like you just went to a barbecue joint and paid $7 for a sandwich. It's good stuff. But the corned beef in the tin that comes out of Brazil these days used to come out of Argentina. I guess you can get it either or, but the corned beef tins, they used to be 16 ounces. They used to be a whole pound. Then they drop them down to 14. Then they put them down to 11. I think they're like 10 and a half now. They keep on getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The weight is. But you open that up and you dump it into your saucepan with your tomato sauce. Add a little bit of oregano, garlic, maybe some basil. Make up some pasta. Pasta keeps for next to forever. As long as the seals on that corned beef tin are good, it'll keep to next to forever. The only thing you really have a problem with is the tomato sauce. You can't really store tomato sauce for long periods of time in a metal can. It'll erode the can, and then you've got a mess. But the glass jars keep okay. And of course, you could have dehydrated tomatoes that you can reconstitute and add your seasonings to in a pinch. I haven't tried it, so I'm not going to recommend it, but you could. Let's see, collard greens and corned beef. We've done that a few times, where you open up the can of corned beef and you dump it out, and you get one of those large cans of the collards, not the small one, but the large one, and you put those two together and you cook them down. Those are really, really tasty, especially if you got a little bit of rice to go along with it. You can take that, and not expensive at all. The corned beef is $4 a can, or at least it was the last time we stocked up on it. We haven't bought any in a while. And then the collards are not that much. You get turnip greens too, mustard greens, that sort of thing. Those big jars of them, pre-seasoned and everything. Mix it together, bit of rice. You serve 4 or 5 people with that, and it only costs maybe $1, $1.25 a serving. I've discovered you cannot eat a whole lot of corned beef and collard greens, though, in one sitting. It's just too rich. John's saying, sounds like the coffee problem with a pound being not a pound. Yeah, it's a way of dealing with inflation. You know, as the cost of everything goes up, the companies are still trying to make their products appealing, and they can't just crank up the price and keep producing the same product, because they're going to be on the shelf next to their competitor, and their competitor is going to be having a product that is maybe a little less in weight, but it's close to the price that you're used to. And if you know the original product that you were wanting to buy has gone up dramatically in price, typically the customer is going to reach over and take the less costly option off the shelf if they can. But so things shrink instead of going up in price, but it's just still the same thing. It's inflation. Mary's saying preparedness is big biz. Yeah, isn't it though? I mean, there's all kinds of products you can buy, so you can be prepared. Because who wants to eat beans and rice all the time? Well, I don't know. Beans are good. Rice is good, especially if you grow your own. I would recommend that you grow your own and grow the things that you want to eat. You know, if you don't like pecans and if you don't like hazelnuts, don't grow pecans and don't grow hazelnuts. Find something else. But find something that you can grow, that you can produce for calories, first and foremost, where you're at. Start with calories for your garden plan. And then from there, you can add things. Don't start with a bunch of tomatoes and a bunch of peppers and a bunch of onions and go, well, I've got a garden, because you're not going to be able to eat out of it. Peppers and tomatoes and onions are great. They're wonderful. I love peppers and onions and tomatoes. But if I had to try to grow enough peppers, onions, and tomatoes out of my yard, I'd starve to death. I couldn't eat that. Let me see. Buy taco rice and tamales in the can. You know, we've got a bunch of that. We got taco rice, the Hormel canned tamales, cans of sweet corn, cans of refried beans. And at any given time, I can crack open a couple of cans of that, heat everything up, plate it up, and be serving a nice dinner for 4 or 5 people at a time, just out of those cans. And once again, they keep for next to forever. As long as the seals are intact, they're good. And we bought that. I don't know, when did we buy all that food? A while back. Unfortunately, I don't eat the tamales very often, because I'm trying to avoid having that high carbohydrate diet. And you know, it's the masa, tamales, corn, the beans, all of those are really high glycemic index foods. Probably not good for me at this particular juncture. So I'm trying to avoid eating those things. So we've got them, but I don't know. They might be more for feeding the stranger who shows up on their doorstep than for feeding me. Because saying greens can easily be dehydrated at low temperatures, crumbled or powdered, and stored away for years. Yeah, we've got bags, well, at least one bag, maybe more, large one, of assorted vegetables, celery, onions, carrots, stuff like that. They've all been dehydrated. Create Synergistic Transformation said, I did 72 pints of canned local grass-fed beef. Ooh, we're coming over to your place for dinner. Not sure how long it'll last in jars. Well, it'll last until you eat it. Because I don't imagine 72 pints of beef lasting very long whenever you start getting hungry. Joe's asking about broad beans. So good, just in time for Lent. Yummy soup. If you simmer until you're left with a little hash, make some yummy tacos, either crispy, fried, or soft tacos. I don't grow broad beans, but that doesn't mean they're not a good idea. I grow, the beans I grow are the Cherokee Trail of Tears black bean. I grow a lot of those, and I grow some of the Anasazi beans. They're the red and white, the red and white beans. They came out of their ancestors came out of a cave around Mesa Verde and were anywhere from 200 to 800 years old by the time the archaeologists found them, and they were able to germinate them and get them to grow, which is kind of cool. Buckets are for poop. Well, yeah. I don't do one of those advertisements for survival food or other products like that. If I do an advertisement, chances are you're buying it from my shop. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and do an advertisement for our shop. If you haven't been there yet, go to greencountryagroforestry.com. That's greencountryagroforestry.com, where you can find our web store, which has various items of apparel, including the Green Country Agroforestry t-shirt and a very new just for this winter, just for this February, sweatshirt with an inspirational message on it that you'll have to see whenever you go to the store. Of course, we do have some perennials for sale. Even now, in the early days of the online nursery, we have rosemary and daylilies, the classic orange daylily for sale, to be followed in the years to come with a few other things. I think next year we'll start putting up the Egyptian walking onions and hopefully a few other items, canna lilies as well. Create Synergistic Transformation is saying rabbits and chickens are the easiest. Or rabbits and ducks is another good combination. You put the ducks out there, and they can come along and clean up after the rabbits, which is a little gross sounding, but the rabbits don't digest everything whenever you feed them, and the ducks can eat what the rabbits leave, if you know what I mean. Mary is saying, doesn't everybody throw their baby diapers in the bucket? Well, maybe not everybody. I mean, I was raised with the cloth diaper. So as you can imagine, I got potty trained early. When it's not convenient for a mom, you get potty trained quick. John saying potatoes. Potatoes are a good crop to grow, especially if you live in a climate where you can pull it off. Here in Oklahoma, it's hard for us because our cool weather season is very short. Spring comes around and the frost breaks, and within 30 days, we're into temperatures above 80 degrees, and summer's here. And then we'll just sort of coast right along there at semi-tropical temperatures all the way until fall arrives, and then we'll have hard frost, and then we'll level back out to 70s again for who knows how long. Sometimes we can get potatoes growing in the fall, and sometimes not. So there's one of the things that maybe you grow them in, say, Florida with the sandy soil in the winter. It's a good time. Or I think they grow a lot of them out in Arizona too. Sweet potatoes grow well here. And I discovered the canna lily grows really well here, and the canna makes a tuber, a little edible. Do I have any next to me? No, I don't have any next to me. Not at the moment. But it makes an edible tuber, in addition to being a nice, pretty flower that the butterflies and the hummingbirds like. And of course, the flower is edible too. You can eat that as a salad green. But the tuber has a taste that is, as far as I can tell, exactly like a potato. Only it has a little bit of dietary fiber in it that the potato doesn't have. I'm not sure how it stacks up in terms of calories. It seems to be a lot more filling than a potato is. So, for what it's worth, you dig a hole, you throw a canna root in the ground, and the plant grows. And whenever you go to dig it up later on, you've got about 20 pounds worth of tubers there that you can process for food. One canna lily, once you dig it up, is going to feed 2 people, maybe 2.5 people, about 20 pounds worth of food. Mary's saying, any animal you have to buy feed for. That is one of the there you go. Hey, kitty. That is one of the big problems, of course, with keeping livestock on limited space. You have to find some way to feed them. Of course, rabbits eat all kinds of nice green leafy stuff. You can grow. Let's see, for feed for rabbits, what would be good? Eastern cottonwood, poplar trees would be good. If you wanted to grow basically tree hay for them, the eastern cottonwood or poplar trees have about 21% raw crude protein in their leaves. Not necessarily great for you and me to eat, but if you're growing it as a fodder for an animal like a rabbit, it would be a high protein feed that you would be given to your rabbits. So if you're growing rabbits for meat, you want to feed them protein, they can convert that into the meat that you're going to eat. So grow your roots, your potatoes or cannas or what have you, your onions for seasoning, garlic, maybe grow a few peppers and dehydrate some tomatoes, grow a few carrots, and then you've got your rabbit meat there for stew. There you go. You make stew out of anything. I kind of like the idea of having lots of nut trees around, and then whenever the squirrels come to steal my nuts, I get to eat squirrel. All right, let me see here. Because I've seen some very good videos on the importance of calorie and nutrient-dense foods. Right here, yeah, as a matter of fact. Here or David the Good is another place to go looking for survival gardening information. Of course, there's also thesurvivalgardener.com, which is David's website. It's a blog, and so you can read up on a wide variety of topics, information that you might need for helping to establish a little bit of food independence, especially in troubling times like we're in these days. Harry is saying the ex always broke. Yeah, my ex-wife was always running short of food close to the end of the month, so occasionally she was like, "We need some food, Daddy. We need some food." So having a surplus of beans and rice came in handy. She didn't complain about having beans and rice. She needed the food. And that's another thing. Whenever you stock up on things like that, or grow food and have food or fuel or medicine handy and available, you're in a position where you can help somebody else, and that's being in a place where you can be the blessing for someone else is a great blessing for you and I as well. Let's see. Vicky saying other small meat animals include quail, pigeon, guinea pig, duck. Yeah, pigeon's not hard to come by. If you have a sack or a bucket or something, a pillowcase for that matter, and a flashlight, go out to the place where the pigeons gather whenever they're roosting at night, and just pick them right off of their roosts and put them in the bag. Pick them off the roost and put them in the bag. You might do that, and instead of eating those pigeons, bring them home and put them up in your very own pigeon coop, and then allow them to get adjusted to being in your coop. You'll have to keep them locked up for an extended period of time, probably a month or so, and feed them. And then after that, once they're accustomed to living in the coop, you can open up the door of the coop. They can go out, fly around, forage, come back, and they will be nativized to your area. And then you can do fun things like harvest pigeon eggs if you don't necessarily want to capture and raise chickens. And eat the squab too, of course. Oh, okay. I was kind of wondering. Mary's using text to type and said governors and meant gophers. And yeah, watch out for old ramen. Ramen and dog food has a shelf life of probably 6 to 9 months, and then it starts turning rancid because of the high fat content in both of them. Ramen noodles are fried in oil, and that oil starts to turn after a while. Top ramen has a half life and not a shelf life. Yeah. Well, air fried or dried ramen noodles. Rice noodles are good. Those are air dried and not fried. Josh is saying that rabbit, goose, or duck symbiotic relationship. Yeah, it's gross. It's just, but yeah, it is. It's just recycling everything. Let's see. Mary's saying rabbits love peanuts. Well, they like the greens. The rodents like particularly rabbits. They like any sort of green that's leguminous in nature, high in nitrogen. If it was a nitrogen fixer like clover or peanuts or beans or anything like that, they will go straight to that and start eating it. Which is one of the reasons why I recommend planting clover all the way around your garden plot, because that's where the rabbits are going to go. They'll go straight to the clover on the outside and hopefully not touch the rest of your veggies. Just saying, what do you call that tree? The one that you can grow as tree hay. Tree hay. It's two separate words. Tree hay. In other words, hay that you, instead of cutting grass, you cut the foliage off of the tree, harvest that, and use that as fodder. Eastern cottonwood or poplar. They're all in the same family of trees. The poplars, aspens, and cottonwoods, all high in protein, but probably not great for us to eat. I contemplated for a while, and we might still do it eventually. Whenever I've gotten the operation set up and running, and we've got our hazelnut trees producing and our blueberry bushes producing and all that stuff. Going ahead and making trail bars, food bars using hazelnuts and blueberries, and then wrapping those in a cottonwood leaf and making it kind of look like, the elvish way bread, little limbus here. I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know how many people would go, hey, I want the limbus, and buy it. Maybe, who knows? I'm still not certain that it would be really great tasting to eat, but it would certainly make a nice wrapper. It's as opposed to a paper wrapper. Yeah, herbivores don't limit themselves to only one type of food. So yeah, you can feed your weeds to your rabbits. You can feed your weeds to your chickens too, for that matter. Brian is saying, did I get a pet elephant? No, I didn't get a pet elephant. I thought about getting some elephant ears whenever we were out there at the store the other day, but instead I got some dahlias. I got a few dahlia bulbs and got those planted, because people keep on asking me if I tried dahlias. No, I haven't, but I'm going to. Whenever I get flowers off them, we'll try them out and see what they taste like. But Brian, since you came in late, the purpose behind that there is that image with the chain around The elephant's ankle is learned helplessness. The elephant, whenever he's young, he's got that big chain around his ankle and he can't break free. And he's taught from his experiences that chain is just, it's impossible for him to break it. And he has to go where he's told to go and do what he's told to do. Whenever he gets big, he can break the chain, but he doesn't know that. All right. Create synergistic transformation says, so I can feed the rabbits eastern cottonwood leaves, fresh, green. Yeah, fresh, green, and dried as well. And it grows fast. So, I mean, they're one of those particularly fast growing trees. So you cut them and coppice them and they grow back really quick. Boom, 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 boom. Cut them back again. Boom, boom, boom. Just keep on cutting them, kind of just like you would do with lettuce. Whiskey, what? Mary's asking how many coffee cups I'm using. I'm using 2 coffee cups because if I used 1 coffee cup, I'd run out of coffee. See, this one's empty now, and this one's got 1 more swallow left in it. No, it's not whiskey. This is coffee with a little cream and sugar in it. Carl's saying, I know it's off topic, but did they ever find your old truck? They did. It was 1 county north of here, and they had trashed it. They had torn out the ignition. Apparently, they were starting it with a screwdriver. They had applied that cheap, nasty press-on window tint stuff that you can't remove from the windows without leaving a permanent gummy residue behind. And of course, being crackheads, they didn't apply it right in the first place. They removed the accent and trim pieces and started painting it with with spray paint. So I looked at everything that they had done, and of course they'd driven it until it stopped running. So whatever it caused it to stop running, I don't know what that was, but the amount of damage that they did to it was going to be more expensive to repair than just getting a new truck. So we went ahead and got a replacement for the truck. Very sad. I kind of like that truck, the green machine. Although it wasn't the F-350 that I want, but one of these days. One of these days. All right, Kitty. Yeah, we're about done. We are. You hear? We're about done. All right. All right. Any other questions, comments, complaints? Clover and peas, yeah. Great for rabbits. Well, it's great for attracting and trapping rabbits. If you don't want the rabbits to eat your fresh tender vegetables, have clover on the outside of your garden, and then whenever the rabbit gets there, the first thing that he sees is goes, clover. Clover tastes really good. I'm going to eat the clover, and your veggies are spared. And Vicky is absolutely correct. Rabbit scat is excellent for fertilizer, and worm scat excellent for fertilizer. Rabbit and worm poo both can go directly on the garden just as they are. You don't have to do any additional composting. They're good to go. Joe's saying, talking about cottonwood and poplars, there's a species here that gives a small black berries. In Spanish, it's called trueno. Translation is thunder. I have not heard of that one. No. I can look it up real quick. It sounds interesting. It just so happens that I've got PFAF right here. And it's TRUENO. Not showing up in PFAF. Let's see. Woods. Let me see. There's one called Black Cottonwood. I wonder if that's the one. Probably not. All right, let me see. Populus alba. Edible. Okay. Rio Grande. Necklace poplar. There's a bunch of them out there. There's a whole bunch of different trees that are in the populus genus, and I'm not seeing that particular one. Doesn't mean that it's not necessarily in the database. It's just probably going to have to go look at them each one individually to find it. Anywho, you can get off of that page there. And it's called Trueno. I will try to find it and find out about it. Do not ever feed cherry leaves to livestock, Vicky is saying. As they wilt, they produce cyanide. I did not know that. Yeah. I missed the full bed. That's my main complaint about the current truck is it doesn't have a full bed. So I have to make more trips out there to the Greenway site to fill it up full of mulch. Wow, that bad, huh? You'd rather they drink the radiator fluid. That'll kill you too. Yep. All right, guys. I don't know if I want to do any more music tonight or not. Oh, did I cover everything I wanted to cover? Food, medicine, shelter, education. Yeah, I think that's it. Hey, guess what? Yeah, that's it. That's all. Great synergistic transformation is asking, is that all prunus or just cherry? I wouldn't know. I'll have to check that out. I would err on the side of caution, though. We have different uses for our prunus than as fodder for livestock, though. In any case, guys, I'm glad that you joined me tonight. It's been an hour and a half, and I don't want to go on too long because I'm not paying for StreamYard. If I stay on too long, too many nights, then they'll wind up cutting me off, and I won't be able to do a show towards the end of the month. So, thank you all for coming out tonight. If you found the video informative or entertaining, you know what to do. I will catch you guys next time.